A few days ago, I watched the most bizarre, stomach-turning thing I've seen in a while, and that is Coralie Fargeat's The Substance. Demi Moore plays Elisabeth Sparkles. She's an aging aerobics instructor being forced off her own show and turns to an experimental drug to restore her youth. But the drug ends up having crazy side effects and is one of those things where the advertisement is sort of like a riddle because it does what it promises, but not in the way you'd expect. And I'll definitely offer a more plot-specific breakdown later on, so you can skip ahead to that if you don't care about spoilers. But coming from someone who doesn't mind gross films, The Substance is really on a different level of disgust because it's also in your face to the point where you almost feel violated watching it. And as I was squirming in my seat, I really wondered to myself, what the am I watching right now? So I think Fargeat and the entire cast, including Margaret Qualley and Dennis Quaid, did a great job at making a statement about vanity in the most grotesque way possible. It really reminded me of Dorian Gray or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but with a modern feminine spin to the story. And if you enjoyed Fargeat's 2017 film Revenge, or if you're a body horror fan like myself, The Substance will be a joyful experience for you. And coming ahead will be a super in-depth breakdown of the plot, so if you haven't seen The Substance yet, I would skip this part to savor the mystery. So we know that Elisabeth Sparkles gets fired from the TV network on her 50th birthday, and after she's driving home feeling ugly and degraded, she gets distracted by this billboard of herself being torn down and ends up in a minor car wreck. And before I go on, I want to say how much I love this scene. It made me laugh a lot, and in hindsight, you can see how impressive the foreshadowing was. But going back to the plot, Elisabeth is hospitalized and her doctor's assistant presents her with a dubious USB stick containing a video about The Substance, a drug that'll offer a better version of oneself. And like anyone in their right mind would be, Elisabeth is skeptical and tosses the USB away. This was a proud moment for women everywhere, but after she spends a night out where we see her mad dogging some old guy with a younger woman, Elisabeth goes home wallowing in self-pity, and guess what she does? She grabs the USB out the trash and rings up the number on the back and is told to pick up the instructions for The Substance in this very mysterious mailroom, which should have been a red flag, but this woman is so consumed by vanity that there was no room left for critical thinking skills. So of course, she takes the activator liquid, puts it in a syringe, and undergoes like an epileptic episode where her iris starts mutating and multiplying within her eyeball, and then her spine tears open like a clamshell, and out crawls a full-grown adult woman who is basically Elisabeth's clone. But here's the messed up part. The two don't share the same memories or consciousness. And even worse, they have to manually swap every 7 days, meaning while one of them is out in the world, the other is left unconscious and being fed liquid food from a bag. So not only is there no actual advantage for Elisabeth, but when she's unconscious, her clone Sue has to stabilize by taking Elisabeth's
spinal fluid
like a parasitic monster, meaning that Sue cannot survive without Elisabeth. And similar to the Gremlins lore, there is a set of unbreakable rules stating that Elisabeth and Sue are essentially one being, so there has to be a balance. And of course, Elisabeth respects these rules. She is desperate after all, but her clone Sue, on the other hand, very quickly develops a zest for life, and of course she would. Can you imagine being born as an attractive 20-year-old and someone tells you, every other week you have to forego existence? Yeah, okay. And because Sue is naughty, she overstays her welcome by a few hours, which causes Elisabeth's finger to decay, which is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, it's important to note that Elisabeth and Sue have no idea what the other person is like, so every time one of them wakes up, they're only getting an impression of their counterpart based on the appearance of the apartment. And this eventually causes a major shift in their dynamic because Sue is becoming a hedonist. She's always leaving alcohol, drugs, and sometimes even guys passed out in the apartment, while Elisabeth is becoming increasingly depressed. She's always just eating chicken and loads of food on the couch with something goofy playing on the TV. So they both start to build up resentment towards each other. They're both consulting with the substance phone person behind each other's backs. And at this point, Sue has lost complete respect for Elisabeth. She views her as a waste of life and begins regularly stealing more and more time for herself, while every time Elisabeth wakes up, she looks more and more geriatric. And you really have to wonder if Elisabeth's just stupid, because at this point, she's being abused, and she had the power to terminate Sue, but she kept the ball rolling until eventually Sue said, "F this," and took jars worth of Elisabeth's spinal fluid so she could survive without her. Now, the major turning point happens when Sue runs out of the spine juice. She becomes destabilized and starts bleeding out of orifices, and when she goes to collect more fluid from Elisabeth, we see that her spine is now filled with pus and looks diseased, but Sue doesn't give a shit. She jabs the syringe in there anyways, and out comes some crusty looking blood opposed to the creamy liquid that usually sustains Sue. So naturally, Sue falls unconscious and Elisabeth wakes up after months of basically being in a forced coma, looking like the goddamn Crypt-Keeper. Do you guys know who the Crypt-Keeper is? Oh my god, that's what Elisabeth was looking like, okay? Scary as fuck. It was such a disgusting sight, especially since she was naked, she was bald, hunched back, bony, and her breasts were stretched down to her hips, which is like a crazy image to try to get out of your head. And finally, she thinks to herself, yeah, I think I made a mistake here. So she gets a syringe prepped to terminate Sue, and she's staring into the face of her youthful clone, and she gets cold feet because she's insane and, you know, basically views Sue as her avatar out in the world. This is not Sims. This is not Sims. We're not playing a game here, okay? So as a crazy old hag would do, she feeds Sue her own blood through an IV and revives her, but now they're both awake. So what does that mean? Sue sees the termination syringe on the floor and, you know, puts two and two together and proceeds to beat the shit out of this old lady version of herself, which is nuts. She's kicking her in the face till she's bloodied up, knocking her head into the wall, and inevitably kills her. So Sue is her own person now, right? Well, not really, because she's a clone. So she eventually ends up needing that stabilizer again. And on the very same day she's meant to host a New Year's show for the network, she starts to literally fall apart. And because she's basically Elisabeth, she's gonna make dumb choices like her too. So as Sue is falling apart, she's running home Frankenstein style and finds some of the old activator that birthed her, and out from Sue's spine crawls an inbred beast with body parts in all the wrong places, and for some reason, Elisabeth's face is on this creature's back, which, you know, was really disgusting. And this creature, who's now a version of Sue, wants to go host the show, and that she does. But when the network executives and the audience members see the inbred creature, they beat the hell out of it. It's a bloody and disgusting scene. And in the end, we see the clone's body decompose like jello, and off crawls Elisabeth's face that broke apart from the creature, and it ends with the face laid out, crushed on Elisabeth's Hollywood Walk of Fame star. The substance was insane. It was so strange and grotesque, but also very beautiful as a film, as strange as it sounds. The cinematography by some guy named something Kraken, Benjamin. The cinematography by Benjamin Kraken was done really well. It was all very disorienting, especially when both Elisabeth and Sue were giving birth to their clones. It was like a first-person point of view. But for me, I was most impressed with the sound effects I heard when the clones were crawling their way out of the spine. It was a mushy, bone-breaking sound that I've never heard before, and it really elevated the disgust. And what I love most about this film are the influences that at least I think inspired Fargeat. Like, in the beginning, we see Dennis Quaid, who plays Harvey, a network executive, and there's a scene where he's firing Elisabeth while chomping down on some shrimp, and it was so disgusting.
Well.
But it really reminded me of those montages in Requiem for a Dream when they're taking drugs and, you know, you're seeing and hearing the entire process, which again is super immersive. And they've even got the Thus Spoke Zarathustra song in there, with the main theme being about values and nihilism, which I found meshed really well with the substance as a whole. And another really cool detail I don't think too many people picked up on, maybe it's because I'm delusional, was the hallway in the network building. It looked very similar to the hallway we see in Kubrick's The Shining. And, you know, I could be way off here, but in the substance, the hallway has red walls with this squared linkage pattern that is just really uncanny. And of course, with The Shining, the carpet in the hallway is a hexagonal pattern that's said to have a lot of hidden meanings about evil. And Kubrick's intention was to move the family through the hotel like pawns, with the carpet in the hallway acting as a metaphor for that. So I may be way off here, but I saw the resemblance and wondered whether there might be any hidden meanings with that hallway design in the substance. Let me know what you guys think. And I just really love this film so much. If it were a person, I would marry it. It's one of those things where, as an audience member, you feel kind of special because there's something out there that caters to your bizarre taste. And you know, there are certain points in a film where you think you've reached the peak, like in Revenge of the Sith, where you think, you know, shit getting serious, and then shit keeps getting more serious. But yeah, The Substance was one of those rare films where it surprisingly outdoes itself, and in this case, it outdoes itself by getting more and more disgusting, but none of that body horror nastiness would have been effective without the really great shots, the ones that are like close-up POV, strange, uncanny shots, the disorienting sound effects, and the fine details like the use of cerebral spinal fluid as a life-sustaining liquid, which is real, that's what it is for, and it's probably what the elites drink for breakfast. So I commend Coralie Fargeat for her work. The Substance is like nothing I've ever seen before. I have never watched any of her previous work, but because of The Substance, I will probably be going through her catalog very soon. Overall, I give The Substance 4 out of 5 stars and would get your butt in the theater as soon as possible to see it. on an empty stomach, of course, unless you want to, barf all over yourself. It's really one of the best modern cautionary tales I've seen about vanity, which is a prevalent evil in our society. When I was watching this, I was just thinking about people who take Ozempic to get skinny. Is that bad? I got like a bodysuit that's supposed to kind of sculpt your body a little bit, and my boyfriend basically told me like I'm cheating. But when I watched The Substance, I was like, it really got in my head, The Substance is something that I don't think comes out of thin air. It was like holding a mirror up to society and saying, hey, you guys are up. And I'm sorry for people who like are advocates, who are Ozempic heroes. Good for you. I hope that your intestines and your metabolism will recover, but maybe go watch The Substance and you'll feel differently. I feel like The Substance is one of those things that will make people love themselves a bit more. And because it's so disgusting, the message hits a lot harder. It didn't give me nightmares, but it's like the scenes of the spine cracking open and then the grotesque inbred monster at the end, those are things that stick in my head for a long time. When I close my eyes right now, I'm thinking of that monster. It looks like the thing from the Goonies, but like if that had intercourse with itself, like if two Goonies had intercourse, that's what the inbred beast in The Substance looks like. Goonie, inbred Goonies. What would you call that? Goonie? Goonie, inbred Goonies. Obviously, The Substance has inspired me. I'm sorry for the rant. I'm sorry to Ozempic users. I'm sure you guys will recover, but maybe go watch The Substance. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about The Substance in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe unless you want 7 years of bad luck.